Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic one nation under indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll start the meeting with the reorganization. President for commission. I make a motion, Charles. Second. All in favor? Aye. Take it over.
Then we have vice president. I know Don, you showed some interest in that, but I think Mike would be good to put in that spot.
Tell you that, what you told me yesterday.
Well, I didn't have a decision then.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah, Mike, second, if you want on there.
Did you make a motion?
Yes.
Now I'll make the motion that Mike Vandy Mark, vice president.
I'd second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Mike.
Nay.
Opposed? All opposed? Stark County Drainage Board, I've sat on there. I'd like to continue that. Possible.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Adjourn.
Yeah, I saw a letter from, and I saw it. Yeah, out there, but it says 26 on his
Yeah,
spot.
what's that for that other one? For county?
Well, just to be safe, I guess, let's go ahead and just, since he sent a letter,
Yeah, start his term over.
26
He's still got 2 years or a year. and a half.
here. Can we verify that, make sure? Well, Glenn, I guess he would probably know more about that. Yeah,
Adjourn.
He's up for the start.
because it says 26 on here, so. Okay,
I'll make the motion, we put it on
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. And for contacts for us, Don, what would you like to have?
the jail and the EMS.
Okay. Mike, what would you,
I guess I'd like to work with the highway department.
okay? Well, I'll stick with the courthouse and the annex. Is there a motion on that, all that?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Keeping the landfill also.
Yeah, I'll keep the landfill too. And the Economic Development Board,
I'd like to be on there.
Don would like to sit on that board.
I'd second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oopsie, I guess all three of us sit on, or it's got all three commissioners. I thought it was always one appointment.
It used to be.
So it's all changed.
I don't know. I've seen that this year too. I'll stay on that if you guys want me to. I don't care.
Okay.
Which one are you talking about?
The Oopsie.
Oh,
So Don would like to sit on there for sure. Is that fine, Mike?
Yep.
Is that a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The Arrowhead,
Same with that. If you want, I'll do that one.
Don will sit on the Arrowhead board. There, that was a motion and then a second.
Second.
Workforce development, I'll stay on that. There's a motion and a second for
I'll
that.
make that motion.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Planning commission, I don't think we got anybody. That's supposed to be Matt Lawrence.
Well, one of us, yeah,
Oh,
I'd be
yeah,
happy to
yeah.
sit on that board.
you would?
Yep.
Okay, well.
I'll make that motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That
Uh,
was the planning commission.
then there's
Just couldn't hear it.
the
Sorry.
Board of Zoning.
I'd make a motion, Eugene Pugh gets that.
Second,
And a motion and a second for June Pugh. All those in favor? Aye.
And then Bob just send a letter in too. I'll make a motion, Bob stays on.
For a second. There's someone else.
who was our list for all them?
Roberta and,
And there,
You-
it's on page 7 of that thing I gave you. It's the list of all the people that requested to be on there.
Oh, I've got it right here. I'd make a motion for Roberta Lee.
Your second. I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye.
And where are you putting her? I'm sorry, I was still writing.
The
on it.
BZA,
Oh, I thought you moved to put leave.
there's two,
Yeah.
there's,
no, they're not putting Robert on there.
Oh,
he
okay.
was up for reappointment, but there's two spots and we
Okay,
filled them
okay.
now.
So who made that motion?
Mike made the motion, I second.
And I oppose.
Yeah, I'll oppose. Health Board. Two spots on the-
There's two highlighted. But I don't,
Who was the second one on the BZA?
Roberta.
No, who was the first one?
Gene Pugh.
Gene Pugh. That's right.
The Health Board, yeah, there'll be, we got one down, must have sent one a letter. Angie Banks,
Yeah,
so we can, if you wanna.
I'd make a motion.
Yeah, a second, motion and a second, all those in favor, aye. Then we got one spot still available.
Howard? Didn't Donna send a letter in or no?
Yeah, she resigned.
Oh, she did resign?
Yeah.
Okay,
I talked to Frank on her behalf,
okay,
and I believe she also did send a letter.
okay.
That's gonna be a vacant spot, because
Yeah,
nobody else.
yeah,
Now,
the Health Board.
do we need to advertise that in some way so the community knows?
Well, we
there's a
should.
It's
vacancy?
on radio, it's supposed to be on the radio at each one of our meetings.
Okay.
Film.
Okay.
And then, Library Board. Uh, Nothing
And nobody.
else. Hopefully she knows.
Actually, I thought there was a library board. I thought somebody did apply for that.
I don't see it. If they did, they didn't send it to me.
Becky. The spot?
Becky who?
I have a note here that it was one of them that,
Yes.
should we contact her and just verify that?
Probably be smart to just
Yeah,
give her the chance if it's reappointed or not.
Contact Julie Smith or Becky?
Julie Smith.
I think this is one that you had sent maybe back in November. You'd sent us an email with her request. I could be wrong, but that's what my notes say.
I don't remember that. I'm sorry. I thought I kept all the letters together.
Well, there were some coming from kind of strange through 2 or 3 people kind of situations. Maybe that's what one of them was.
Hmm.
Well, we'll check, let's check into that and then we got the aviation board. Jim Long currently sits on there and I know he sent a letter.
Send a letter, yeah.
Is there a motion to reappoint Jim Long to the aviation board?
Sure.
Second,
We had a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
I,
And then we had the hospital community board.
Earl Henry sent one in and I got a letter from the board, because members of the board are supposed to send it.
Mhm.
And it was Earl Henry, Dr. Brown, which, and Marty Lucas one that's on there. Brown can't be on it because he's on the school.
Mhm.
So I talked to him the other day and he resigned for wanting to be on. So we got Earl Henry and Marty Lucas.
Is that your motion?
Yep.
That's a motion and a second.
second,
All those in favor? Aye.
I,
And alcohol beverage board.
Joe Fussell sent it. Cause I thought Ken didn't want to be on it no more.
then I think Gwen's off, right?
Yeah,
So we really got to fill 2 seats there.
you know, we really, it's council. Just do.
Oh, I see.
I'll make it the most for Joe Fussell.
So
Second,
motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
I,
City Planning Commission.
I didn't see any letters for
Nothing
them.
for
Contact them if they still want to be on it.
that. Yeah, please. And the PETA BOA board.
I make a motion to leave Tori on the Victoria.
second,
We had a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
should we contact him as well?
Mhm.
Michael, did you say you're making the contacts?
Yeah.
The LEPC board.
I don't mind being on that.
Okay. And then a proxy, I don't know who you'd like for that.
You or Mike, it don't make any difference.
I could do it. So was that a motion?
Yes.
Had a motion
Second,
and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
I,
I'd like to be on EMA too, if possible.
Okay, the EMA board. Don would like to be on that. Yeah, motion.
I'll make that motion.
second,
All those in favor? Aye.
I,
You stay in the proxy.
Yeah, I'll be the proxy on that. And the FEMA board.
might as well go 3 for 3 on this, Don.
No, I don't want that FEMA board. You're pretty lax here. We can put you on there and Charlie's the proxy.
Wonderful.
That motion.
Yes.
Yeah, second,
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
I,
And then the CBC.
The only one we got for that is Earl Henry. He's on the next page.
Can we do both those, Justin? Do we just put him on the hospital board?
You know, if the hospital board's a non-lucrative position or not. Give me a second.
Well, there was always some issues getting people to that board.
Yeah, we got it full.
Do I?
On, I see is right here. Joanne Bailey, she up. Yeah. Make a motion, she stays on.
Joanne Bailey?
Yeah,
Second.
And a motion and a second, all those in favor?
aye. Aye.
Thank you. What about Earl Henry?
We're waiting on.
Well, he's.
Oh, that's right.
Heard some of that.
Got a long list of. So the only thing that I see is, and this is not for you guys, it's specific to Marion County. Looks like the AG had ruled that. I find it again.
I thought, like Dr. Brown could be the school board in the hospital.
Yeah, well, school board's deemed a lucrative position.
Oh, okay, okay.
Uh, So can that just be tabled and wait until? I'm thinking it's probably a lucrative position because they ruled that the Marion County Building Hospital Corporation Board was. But let me double check, 'cause it doesn't specifically say, you know, county hospital board. I'm thinking it probably is, but let me double check on that. So we need a motion to table then?
Yeah, just
Make a motion to table.
a motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye.
Oh, we then Michael and call the other two.
Mhm.
And then three.
And the building corp.
I think your guys' building corporation is still active, so the business entity report is due. So if you guys want to approve for me to file that business entity report for you, I will. Michael said she still gets a bank statement, but I need your guys' approval to file that to renew it, so you're not dissolved.
I would think that.
There a motion,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Move on to the. Park board, Tom Bush,
I'll make a motion, we leave Tom on there.
motion, is there a second?
Did he give us a letter?
Yes.
Oh, he did? Okay. Second.
And a motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's it for the appointments for now. We have, let's get on the, going on the agenda, the highway department. Not here. Okay, strike that. And then we had Chris Showman, the Mammoth ADA. Or,
I'm gonna do my best to channel Mr. Shellman. He's unable to join us today, so I'm Chris Klein with Doral. We appeared before you back in the December 16th meeting with amendments to the EDA agreement that reflects the actual constructed portion of phase one of Mammoth, 400 megawatts. The revised draft that Mr. Schramm has reflects the actual payments for those. And then we also then front loaded those payments. So we made $100,000 payment in December 15th. And then there'll be an additional $200,000 front loaded payment in 2025. And I didn't know if you had further questions or any.
No, this is for the 2022 EDA, you're saying?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Whatever you guys want to do with it, it's to itemize the front loaded payments that was approved in 22 through their EDA. But I'd looked at it and that was the only additional, because remember they made a change the day of the meeting. And I got an email to me during the meeting, so I said I'd check it out, but
That's what we're doing here.
So what they're looking at is the 2022 EDA.
the 2022 EDA, because they'd made the front loaded payment. And the original EDA didn't call for that because
Right.
there was not an exact timeline. So
Right.
they want a vote from you to revise that 2022 EDA to take into consideration that front loaded payment being made in 2024. Since the original.
And
timeline-
additional front load payments in 20.
In addition,
Yeah.
yes, correct.
What's the explanation for approving the front loaded payments?
For your
Yeah.
approving it, we had heard that or the county wanted to see more cash up front rather than spread it out, so that's the reason for that. It's to get more money into the county earlier.
I'll make that motion.
Discussion on it.
Well, I'm new to this, so I'm not really sure what changes, we're talking about here.
It's
See, they're gonna pay more upfront instead of waiting a couple more years.
But you're suggesting that those changes were at a request from the county?
Well, we heard that the county wanted to have, some more money up front in the payments, so. That was the idea. But the payment schedule's laid out in the amendment. And we thought we were responding to what the county was interested in.
One thing we did have them strike is any language about any new project. Remember that was because keep in mind, any new project they propose would have to go in front of respective boards. So that's one thing we had them strike. My concern, obviously, because we're very differing ideas about what it looks like going forward, to strike the language that referred to in the amendment in second or third phase of project. So that's something they could do for us. Just again, make sure everybody knew it was for the 2022 only.
I guess my position, just from me, would have to be to table it only because I'm not as familiar with it. So it'd be up to you guys to make the decision if it needs to be done today.
Did you send that, or the revised, did you send that to us?
Should have been sent to the auditor. So that's
I don't know
who
if
I told him to send
I
it
don't
to.
know if I seen it.
I don't recall seeing it, not the revised one.
I guess,
Normally I would have printed it out, and brought it with me.
We had made the first $100,000 payment has already been made,
Right.
early payment, so it's also,
I can verify that.
yeah.
I guess I'd like to see that. So if we, we'll make sure that gets sent to us.
Sure. So
The
I
payments.
think the version that he'd sent me was a red line version.
It was
A
not,
red line version,
Yeah.
so it was all marked up.
right,
So
so what do you want to see?
the clean version,
Okay,
so that way they can take a look at it.
okay, we can do that.
We need to make a motion to table.
Yeah,
I'd make a motion to table.
and motion is our second. Second that, all those in favor? Aye.
So we bring this back the next meeting then?
Yeah, once we get in, yeah,
Did you vote aye or nay?
Nay.
Nay.
I would hope it'd be at the next one if we can see it all the, whatever.
Yeah.
On paper.
It's pretty, yeah, it's
I
pretty
just get
clear.
a PDF, a clean version, so
Okay.
I don't have red stuff all over it.
Okay,
That's okay.
They,
sure.
then they have a FMLA extension.
I talked to her, she cannot get around people. because of being sick, I'm not gonna go into this.
Mhm, right.
I say absolutely.
So you're making that motion?
Yeah, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Have Todd Jackson. Is he here yet?
I thought I seen him.
I know, I see him.
Just to kind of circle back on the amendment, we're tabling that until the next meeting.
Yes.
Like, I know you didn't get this last time, didn't we? This is the same thing Charlie and Donnie as last time, so. Went in front of council after we met with you guys, as there was a. I guess confusion on the vote you guys took. Donnie, I understood what you said. Oh, yeah, I apologize. Understood what you said, but then when the motion was made, it was come out of the next era, next era, EDA. So council said that they'd approve it coming out of seeded funds, and that way I had to come back in front of you to, as long as I went in front of the communication board for licenses, things like that. I had to come back in front of you guys for final approval on the amount that they approved for.
So moved.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Can I ask a couple quick questions?
Absolutely.
So you're requesting all new radios?
Not all new. So we have 8 within the last decade that the EMA got a grant for. I think it was 5-6 years ago. We have 25 members on our department. We have 25 active radios in our department, currently operational. Then we have 4 as a standby and station. I'm looking for from the county on this side to replace 8. Then the 5,000 that came from ARPA earlier this year, I get 2 additional ones. So they give us 18 brand new radios or newer radios within the last decade.
How soon will you be needing additional radios or upgrading the others?
We are looking at other avenues to try to do that. Grants are just far and few between to obtain funds to be able to do that. So we're going to basically take our existing inventory that we're going to be taking out of service, pick out the best 7 radios to get to our top 25, and then have about 5 extras for in our trucks or on our shelves for if guys forget the radios, don't grab them, whatever it may be. And then the rest of them are going to basically be skeleton radios to repair the radios that we can no longer get repaired for.
It's like normally we give each fire department $5,000 a year. Well, they've always did it this year and we started giving one extra money. So Todd's come from Judson, Coons Lake, Hamlet to Judson. Haven't come before, so we've given them extra this year.
And basically what this is, Mike, for a little bit of background without reading it, the existing radios we have, I guess, outside the 8 new ones, they're 19 years old. They came out in 2004. They stopped being made in 2013. They're supposed to have a 15-year lifespan, but they didn't. And within the the communication guidelines rules, they're supposed to be making parts for 5 years after that. So 2018 was the last parts they made available for these radios, whether it's batteries, whether it's knobs, whether it's antennas, whatever it may be. And for the last 3 years, we have not been able to get any of our radios repaired. So we actually have about 3 skeleton radios we're using to just rob Peter to pay Paul to keep our radios going. And these are our daily communications.
Last meeting, we went to the council and somehow got messed up on where we were pulling money. But it's always just asking us to redo it.
So the council approved to take it out of seeded funds.
Yes,
Was it a unanimous vote or do you remember?
believe it was.
I think
I
so.
believe it was, yes.
And you made a motion?
Yeah.
There,
Just
second.
take it out, see it.
I'll second it.
We had a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Do I need to turn in the receipt to you, or is this the receipt?
We need to turn in a claim to my claim is called Rebecca.
Okay. I will get a hold of you guys, figure out how to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have Spencer England up.
How's it going? I have been watching the process for moving here about 1.5 years ago. I've been watching the process with the county dealing with some of these large companies coming in and some of the questions that's being asked. and some of the arbitrary answers that are being received by those who are asking the questions. And it's just something I wanted to bring to your attention that maybe you guys could consider, seeing you guys had talked about a moratorium last month. My vested interest is none except for the vested interest of the taxpayers. And I have been watching this process happen where companies have been approved to do certain things, other companies aren't approved to do certain things. If somebody's in the permitting process, well, they're in the permitting process. Why is that? And then I was looking at the permitting process for the county, and I think that's something that really has to be looked at. I don't see it, like if you look in Laporte has what they call a control ordinance for a preliminary process approval for permits. And that means that every company that steps up to par to want to do work in the county, they have to meet X amount of requirements. That's documented. And once that's documented, then they're in the permitting process. There's no arbitrary decisions on who's in because I received a phone call or I received an email. I'm not talking specifics right now. I'm just saying on the latter end of protecting the taxpayers, where we've had situations with the drainage board, where you've had companies come in and ask to put drainage tiles in for a site that has 600,000 gallons of water on it, and they want to push it on down to someone else down the field. Those things can be alleviated by thinking up front and having a very, very organized response, which starts off with having a good permitting process that has steps that these companies take to allow them to be able to move further in the process. I've heard terms and I've seen some of the new updated ordinances where they've mentioned 30% plans to move, to approve a project. Well, that's not how the state works. The state doesn't allow you to move forward with 30% of plans. There's steps that they take, and each one of those steps allow you to go to the next step once you sign off and everything's been adjusted. And I guess what I'm speaking to generally is that I don't want to see the taxpayers or the city take the brunt end of a company that has billions and billions of dollars and that have done this before, and they come in and they see an advantage that they can take, and the response from a small community may be short of what it should have been, or maybe couldn't have been as strong as what it could have been. And so I'd like to see you guys consider taking a step back and putting a halt on any new permitting going on until you establish a permitting process that's step by step. It's written out. There are signatures that are recorded so that there's no arbitrary decisions, because what could happen is not just regarding solar or battery storage or any of this, but any company can come in and say, well, I know so-and-so, and they allowed them to move forward with this because they made a phone call and they were in this process. Or I made an email and all of a sudden I'm in the process. There's nothing that really dials that out on paper here. If you look at, like I said, some of the processes of Jasper Pulaski, which Laporte took, and then you look at some of the processes they've done here to allow people to move forward, there's no set standard. And what I'd like to see you guys do is maybe put a halt on this, not to hurt any one company, but to help all the companies all the way around and protect your assets. Because if at any point a company comes in and they find out that, well, they allowed them to do this, so you have to allow me. And all of a sudden they're like, well, we're at this point now, we're not going to allow that. And they're like, no, wait a minute, wait. Now you've opened the door for lawsuits. And right now, based on what I've seen on some of the permitting, it's very arbitrary. There's not a set standard of a control ordinance where it's step-by-step processes. It's, well, you gave us this and we'll allow you to move forward. Well, then the next guy steps up and, okay, well, we think you should do, and it's just differentiated. I think things need to be really streamlined, have step-by-step procedures that are written out and recorded. Because I know for a fact, and again, I have no vested interest. I'm looking out for those who have been elected, and just as a citizen. And as somebody who's seen how business operates on the side of legalities, which I'm sure this gentleman's very aware of, there are open doors that you guys can close loopholes that you might not see, and you've already seen it. We've had a solar ordinance written, and then adjustments are made. And then they're adjusted and they're adjusted. Well, instead of reinventing the wheel, there are places who have already seen this and dealt with it. So find out what they've used as their ordinance or as their their blank starting point. You don't have to start and make adjustments thereof. And I guess what I'm getting at is, speaking of, like, as an example, just one example, there's many. Okay, and I won't go into details. If we want to talk about details, I can do that at a later point, but I really like to see you guys hold everything off on all of everything until you start going back and start looking at decisions that may have been made that may not have been in the best interest, or what can we do to adjust here forward? Because right now, it's just kind of like there's low-lying fruit. Everybody jumped on this low-lying fruit of money. And then they, all of a sudden, well, we'll adjust fire as we go along. Well, you don't have to do that. That stuff's already been done. There's no reinventing the wheel. And if you look at processes like the way Laporte does things, they have a set process that you have to meet criteria before you move on to the next stage. And I just don't want to see the county get caught with their pants down. And the easiest way to do that is to stop what's going on, stop the moving forward from here until we assess and kind of sit back and look at where our shortcomings are. And I didn't know if that makes any sense.
But we currently have a moratorium on solar and battery storage. Was that accurate? Because I think,
Oh, yeah, the three that's coming in, and moratorium for 1 year after that.
okay,
No new stuff coming. They can't do that till we release the moratorium.
and what I think you're saying is all companies should be involved.
Yeah, I
with it.
mean, because what you're doing is you're saying like, well, we're gonna do a more, just on that aspect. I'm speaking specifically about the permitting process, that it can be streamlined and controlled in a way that everyone meets the exact same criteria before they go to the next step. Because if I give you 30% of my electrical drawings, and that's for an entire project, and that's acceptable, and then we'll get the rest of them later. That's not how the state works. The state works as you might give them 30% of your initial step, and then they allow you to start making work. But it's just, it doesn't meet what I think state requirements are. And I know you guys want to be there, and you can always be more stringent. But I think that the fact that there have been companies that have been allowed to break ground on massive jobs and having just preliminary drawings. And I'm like, and what I guess it goes right back to the drainage issue. Okay. You have a solar company that comes in, it just happens to be solar, could be any company. They come in and they're like, hey, we got this 20 acres, it's flooded, right? And they want to put in drainage tile to go into Ford ditch or whatever ditch it was. And he's like, we just want approval to put in this drainage tile. Well, there's nobody in the meeting to ask him, okay, well, how much water are we talking? 600,000 gallons. So just the one meeting I went to, I looked at the farmer that's right down the road. And I said, in that ditch, and one of the guys on the board, I said, can that ditch handle 600,000 gallons more of water? And they're like, huh, yeah, no, it already floods as it is. And so I'm like, okay, so I asked the gentleman from the company, I said, who did your site assessment? Well, he doesn't have an answer for that. So when you go, those who farm corn know that corn absorbs X amount of water per year per acre. You got 20 acres of flooded water, 6 inches of water. There's so many gallons of water. That's how I came up with the figure. I just quickly, maybe a little off, but it was, and so the thing is, those type of things can be alleviated. And then you have companies like that, let's say in the initial proceedings, they don't say, you know what, yeah, we'll improve all your ditches. All of a sudden, 10 years from now, the taxpayers end up paying for the flooding problem because on the front end, the county didn't set that up as a parameter because it just wasn't thought of, right? Because obviously these guys didn't think of it. They're coming and asking, it's like, why didn't you put this in your original request when you're doing the work? Why wasn't this in your site assessment? Well, you know, I asked them, why didn't you guys put a retention? Well, we have 2 or 3 retention ponds. Okay, well, somehow that was missed. I don't want to see in the process of these companies moving forward that the guys down the road that are receiving all that water, that they end up dealing with the end result, because this company's not liable. Because I don't care what they promise you in verbally, if it's not on a piece of paper, they're not liable. Now, can they turn around and say, yeah, we'll take care of it? Sure they can. Do they have to? No. So I've seen more often than not, companies come in and they make a promise, even on something as simple as hiring 20 guys, right? We're gonna hire 20 people, 100 people, 200 people, we'll get a tax abatement. And we're gonna get it for so many years. We're at the end of 10 years, our thing's done. Well, 5 years in or 3 years in, they move out. The county never chases them for the back taxes they didn't pay because they didn't meet the requirements. Why that is, I don't know. But the taxpayer lost on the end because of the taxes that could have been collected. So simple things like this are things that have to be thought of. And I just see a lot of arbitrary moving when it comes to dealing with these companies that concerns me. And again, I have no skin in the game. I don't make money off anything. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just saying I'm watching it sitting back. And some of the things I'm seeing working, or paper that's been requested by other people that have been given, well, one of the things I heard was, well, they're in the permitting process. And then the question was, well, what constitutes them being, well, if we got a phone call, I got a phone call from them last week. And what that equates to is less transparency, because when a project like this happens, a taxpayer should be able to request said paperwork, information, not behind the back conversations that happen on the phone, but everything should be transparent. So when someone asks for it, it's given to them, not 6 weeks later, not request a FOIA request, but it is transparent for the taxpayer to see. Doesn't matter if they have no financial involvement with this. The companies, and some of these companies that are doing this, are funded by taxpayer money, okay? That means they have to meet other requirements than just privatized companies. But what I'm speaking to, though, is primarily your permitting process. And that I think, taking in just what I've watched over the last couple of years, that it seems like there's a lot of open doors for people to say, well, that's an to bring an arbitrary lawsuit against a county. I don't want to see it happen, because we receive a lot of money up front, and what seems like a lot of money, until down the road, like I said, we're talking about the places going in on 23, those places flood. Okay, those are all farmed. When they're not farmed anymore, you have a lot more water coming off or sitting there. And some of you guys know that because you're farmers. If it's not farmed, it becomes a hard shell, and water has to have a place to go. It's going to the easiest place, that's in the ditch. So I've been kind of watching it. I implore you guys to take that concept that you had last month, the moratorium, step back and be careful about excluding companies. I know we're worried about a lawsuit on one end, but as your job and the council and those on the planning commission, it's your job to look out for everyone that's the taxpayers. That means the lowest people that make the less money and the people who make a lot of money. Your job is to make sure that these processes encompass the best for everybody. And in this point, I don't think they do. I've seen it happen with South Shore, where they wanted $600 million to improve, and it jumped up to 1.1 billion. These are just things that happen. And then it's like, well, they're just kind of in there. We got to deal with it, but they're not. They're spending other people's money. So streamline that process so that you work with your attorney, and you have that control ordinance that controls how those steps are made, and that it's not just, Joe Schmo and 2 or 3 people make, that sounds good. Or you have somebody who I saw a site inspection on a project, and it was literally a piece of paper like this with some scribbling on it. That was his site inspection. And if there was more to it, I haven't seen it, and it's been requested. So I'd like to see things be a little more, how do I say it, professionally done. And that's not a fault of anybody in the room. I'm not talking because you guys are new. I'm talking to the guys who were here before. When you have a smaller community, you make a decision. You either decide we're going to stay a small community and we're not going to have that stuff happen where some things are, your hands are tied, right? The state's like, if you want to have a solar pro, here's what you do, and then you kind of have to roll with it. But you have to make those adjustments based on what's best for everybody. And if situations like that I've seen have happened with just the drainage, with just that one situation, and I know of a couple little ones, there's more out there that I don't know about. Because I've got kids and a wife and I'm busy doing stuff, but just the little things I'm watching and I'm looking for the facts and the details and I'm like, wow, man, like, why wasn't that thought of? Those things happen. But then as a small community, if you're like, we're gonna go ahead and implore these people, we're gonna have all this stuff come in, you better be ready to address those things that years later, you guys might not be here. I've seen cities build subdivisions and have massive problems with water, with water issues. And they're like, well, that guy's not here anymore. And it's like, okay, great, but that doesn't alleviate the burden on the taxpayer that now the city's having to address that issue. And it's happening in LaPorte. I can show you the specific area. So having that streamlined permitting process, not only does it streamline it, but you know what I mean, an ordinance that outlines, here's the things that we require. They have to be signed off on, they have to be dated, then it becomes transparent to the public. That becomes a super effective tool if you ever are sued, to where he can go in court and go, no, here's what they were approved to do, or here's what they said they would do. Right now, it's so arbitrary on how some of this is decided. I just get nervous that, you open the door to a very small community that has X amount of money coming in, and then you have multi-million-dollar lawsuits, because some of these companies that have came in and it's always easy to say we're going to do all these wonderful things on the front end, but it's the back end that sometimes, or like the drainage issue, it's things in the middle. You're like, crap. And then all of a sudden you're like, how do we address that? And I know under some of those things you can't just kind of squirm through it, but these aren't things that other people haven't dealt with. And just looking and looking at the permitting process you have, it's just kind of spooky. It's just kind of scary to me. So it is my thought process that I would implore you guys to maybe say, you know what, let's just draw a line here and we'll deal with the issues at that point that we have to from drawing this line. But we need to kind of really assess where we're at. There's things we've made adjustments on. There's other things we have to adjust on, but we don't have to. It's not kind of like I open this door and I run out into the night. I can run so far and eventually I'm going to run into a tree. You don't have to keep running in the dark. You can start making yourself a flashlight, start moving forward with, okay, we kind of know where we're going now. We're not going to have these issues come up because we're addressing them up front. That's all.
I suggest you go to planning commission and let them come to us with all the answers, in my opinion.
Well, ultimately, though, you're responsible, not the planning commission.
But the planning commission comes to us
Mhm.
with what they come up with, and then we decide.
So is the PRC and planning commission currently working on updating, since we're on a moratorium?
The two ordinances will be in front of the planning commission this Wednesday.
Okay, so there is progress being made currently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're making some changes, and one of the things that I heard you mention, Spencer, was you're nervous about our permitting process because we're not, I'm trying to paraphrase here, we're not documenting when the permit process is starting.
Well, since the onset of a lot of these projects, I know for a fact there has been things that have been requested. And it's taking time for either I have to look that up. I'm not sure where that is. I gotta find that, or what I said before was, well, I received a phone call, so they're in the permitting process. It's like, so what constitutes the permitting process? There has to be a set standard there should be a set standard so that it's not arbitrary. It's like, well, I talked to them, they're in the permitting process. And it seems like that's where it's at. There's no, well, I have this letter right here, it's signed and we're all signed up and now they're in the permitting process. Because if I'm a company and I come in and I see how arbitrary stuff is, I'm just kind of like, wow, man, really? Like if I feel it's unfair, that's an open door for a lawsuit. And it seems to and it happens. It's not something that I think is new here, but I think once you realize it, you have to establish a set clause that, okay, this is how we are moving forward. And every company is the same. There's no special treatment for any certain company. Not saying has or hasn't been. I'm simply saying that it just seems very open door right now. And, you know, one of the things I was gonna mention was just that, it seems like talking about the plan commission, that there has been, and again, I can't give you specifics. As you guys know, you probably are more involved than I am. But there has been failures to show of when or when not, or say when a company's started the process. Because I can't find recordings. So is the planning process started if I call you and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna start England Solar. We're gonna start building in 3 years. I'm in the process. Because some places there are places that have been like that, but it's better to say, okay, well, we have a permitting process. You need to come and fill this out. We put this before, you know, however you guys decide to do it, because a phone call or an email, if you constitute that as the beginning of the permitting process, that's it. Then that's the way for everybody. And that's a very loose way to be, very scary way to be when you don't know who really you might be dealing with or what their intentions are. That's why this gentleman knows better than I do. A contract means everything because it's A to Z. You know exactly what your requirements are there. So the process needs to be recorded and accessible. So as soon as someone needs to access this, it's online, or they can at least come into the courthouse and request it. And again, I don't want to get into specifics about it because I'm not as well versed, but I do know, I don't even have to know the little situations that I've been talked to about it, but also just the simple thing with the guy with the drainage, right? A simple company that I'm not, you know, I was in here for the one drainage board meeting and the guy said, well, who the hell is this guy? How does he know how much water corn takes in? I'm like, because it's a simple figure. A corn takes in so much water per acre, per inch. That's simple. That's just based. You can get a general idea of how much, if you don't have the corn anymore, that water's still going to come there and it's going to sit. So it's like those things hadn't been addressed, and why a company didn't come in and address it in their site assessments, just kind of strange.
Okay,
And so
So Donnie, I think you made the motion originally on the moratoriums that are currently in place.
Yes.
Some of this gentleman's concerns, it sounds like maybe getting already worked on. We haven't seen it yet. It may be coming Wednesday.
I mean, there's a lot of things on wrap. You're
Right.
exactly right, but there's a lot of things that he said that is completely inaccurate as well. We do have protections in place within this county. A phone call or a piece of paper does not constitute somebody being under the permitting process. For any,
So what does?
there's a lot of conversations, and I can't speak on, I will speak on behalf of the planning commission itself. So we go through a lot of conversations with, and it's not just us, it's the county council, it's county commissioners, whoever it may be. There's a lot of conversations. Let's just say, for example, solar company like you're indicating. There's a lot of conversations that have been held up front beforehand. Does not constitute that they're in the permitting process. The permitting process is a multifaceted process because it includes the Stark County Commissioners, it includes the Stark County Council, it includes the Road Commission, it includes the Drainage Board Commission. And it also includes our engineer that we have for that county, which is Bob Lloyd. Once you get in that permitting process is when you turn that paperwork in to Mr. Bob Lloyd. Now, within the new ordinance themselves, you are correct. There has been instances in the past where a application has been submitted to Bob that has not been complete. That loophole is being closed within that new ordinance.
Okay.
If they don't have all that stuff complete, then that is not considered an application at that point. And if there are any changes to any ordinances, during that meantime or during that period, they are going to constitute and fall under that new ordinance. Doesn't require them falling under the old ordinance. Unfortunately, we live and learn on this past situation. So because of the multifaceted aspects within the county and the multiple boards within the county, some of your requests that you have put in, it may have been delayed getting it to you because most of your requests probably come to the planning commission for paperwork, but the planning commission doesn't necessarily have the EDA agreement from the council, may not have the road use agreement from the Stark County Highway Department, may not have the drainage board agreement, and we have to go search for those things.
Well, I know that Roberta put in a FOIA months back. I mean, it was even reported on the news. She still hasn't even received all the.
So my only question is, so where is it, where is this, like when you say there is a permitting process, is that documented and where is the process? I want to see, I'm not asking you, I'm not saying, but I'm saying, I'm curious on where the process is documented that here's what has to happen before we consider a company to be in the process. You know what I mean? Because yeah, I know what you're saying and I understand, but it needs to be documented on, this is what's required before you are in the process. You're not, just because you give me ABC, if you don't do FY, all the way to G and we sign it, you're not in the permitting process. That's what I'm saying, is that recording that so that there's no opportunity for arbitrary decisions to happen. And then every company from here forward, and any individual is all on level, and most of the cities are that way. And I'm just throwing it out there because I don't want to see a lawsuit happen. Because you're saying there's a process, I'm like, where's the process at? Where's the written control ordinance? Be like a control ordinance, like you're here, there's processes and there's four, let's say there's four A, B, C, and D before you're done with your project. Okay, so for you to meet A, this is what's recorded, and this is how you begin the process. Once you get done with A, you're in the process. Right now, you're not in the process. Just because you call me doesn't mean that. And if that's not recorded, I just think it becomes, and from what I've seen, again, a couple of the examples was, it becomes arbitrary. And I think a company that feels mistreated could open the door to a lawsuit. I just don't want to see that happen. That's why I'm asking that.
I have a question for Justin too, because I seem to remember that when things like what Spencer's talking about might go up in a lawsuit or up for judicial review, that one of the standards that's used for whether they're going to uphold a board's decision is arbitrary and capricious.
That's
And
the other
if
word
you
I was
don't
looking for, is
have a
capricious.
process in place that protects the due process of everyone involved, you get into arbitrary and capricious land.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying.
I should have said
We
that.
need to stop that.
Right.
We need to close that door.
It's a big loophole, and if you don't start to at least, start closing that door, it's just open right now. And I mean, the examples, I'm sure, go around the room and give examples where I know the old adage was good old boy system. We know that there's things that have happened. We can all lie to ourselves and say it hasn't. We don't have to admit it, but we can say, so you close that. And it's like, this gentleman is an attorney. I'm not. He gets treated the same way as I do when it comes to this process. And does it suck for sometimes the guy's like, I really like to do this. And some guy just gives his own look. Yeah, go ahead. It's no big. Yeah, it sucks because you lose but in a situation where you're dealing with a massive, some of these massive setups, these new projects, it closes the door for, capricious is perfect. I just couldn't think of the word, but it closes that door. And there is a lot of that going on, because I believe you when you tell me that there is a process. Where is it written that this is the process? Because then it's already arbitrary at that point.
One thing that just came to mind too, Mandy had made a comment that when you guys were doing your board appointments just now, I think there was one that was inadvertently omitted because it came up at one of the commissioners' meetings a few months ago about an internal controls committee. Well, there is an internal controls committee, and this sort of thing you're talking about goes directly to the heart of what an internal controls committee could be addressing and should be addressing. A control ordinance when it comes to where's it, how they're going to stand up in a court as far as where this process is beginning and the steps along the way. But one of the positions on that internal controls committee is empty. And I don't know how long it's been empty, but I know that since I was at the commissioners meeting and Mr. Borley commented that there was already such an existing committee, but couldn't remember any of the names of anyone on it. Well, the auditor is one of the members. Currently, Carrie Block from First Choice Insurance is a member, and that third position is empty. And so I would ask the commissioners to consider at the next meeting, or advertising for it now, getting letters of interest, filling that, getting that committee doing what the state says it should be doing. And also, I think something that I would strongly ask for too would be for the commissioners at the next meeting to possibly consider codifying, retaining a company to codify all the ordinances. I talked to Andrew Rao over at North Judson today because they have done that. It's American Legal Publishing. Hamlet did it last year while I was their town attorney at my suggestion. I think it cost them about $6,000. It cost Judson, Andrew said, I think $4,500 approximately. And that not only will they organize and everything will be in one place as far as ordinance goes, which would go to transparency, ease of access. It might cut out some of the time some of these folks are having to fill FOIA requests. And the public can pull up the ordinances online on American Legal Publishing's website. And they do the updates for you too. Every year you submit your updates and they get it right on there. And it's all online without anybody having to search year by year or whatever. So I was planning on contacting some of those folks myself and maybe getting on the agenda for one of the next meetings so they can tell you guys the ins and outs of
Yeah,
the
be
codification
good.
process. So, sorry, I didn't. mean
That
to
was all I
put
had.
this off anyway.
That's all I have.
To clarify, Donnie, we currently have a moratorium.
Yep.
So some of these requests that Spencer's made could be coming out Wednesday. We don't know yet. But everything's closed. There's really no progress that can be made between, now and Wednesday with any new solar projects happening.
No, we excluded the existing companies.
Well, and that,
No, ma'am,
that's,
that's next
yeah,
era.
and that's the thing is something that Nextera originally said they were not doing battery storage. And that yet their new EDA if I'm remembering this right, there is plans for, there is wording in there for battery storage. So it's like, that's what I mean. It's like, it's kind of like all over. They say they're not doing this, but they're gonna throw this in there and hopefully you don't notice it. Cause that's what I'm saying. I saw it mentioned in that new ordinance. And I think it was it an EDA that somewhere they mentioned, something about battery storage. And I'm like, wait a minute, they said they weren't doing this. So I could care less what they do, but I will just say that's where having everything on the table and really read through that, because when I read something with their agreement that mentioned battery storage, and I'm like, wait a minute, these guys said they weren't doing that. So does everyone know this is something they're planning on doing? So it's just to be transparent. I want to see things be transparent. So even the smallest kid in high school that looks up some of your, the paperwork online can find this stuff, because I know people that have dug for things and could not find them, or it took them weeks to get it. And that's just unacceptable. Or having to file FOIA requests unnecessarily because someone doesn't want to give somebody something. That's just unacceptable. So again,
One gal back here had her hand up.
Mary.
I'm sorry.
So. I'm the planning commission administrator, like a lot of you know. I feel like a lot of what you said is inaccurate, okay? Because there is a process. And it's stated in our ordinance on how these companies have to come forward, specifically like with solar, okay? There is a process in that ordinance says what they need to do. And then. Second of all, so that would be where it's written,
Okay.
okay, because you were asking where that process is written, it's in that ordinance. And it would be in any ordinance going forward too. So there is a process. Second of all, you were asking when that process starts. That process starts once they submit their files to us.
Mhm.
Granted, here in the last year, we've had a couple submit, they're all digital, which is great, okay? Prior to that, they were not digital, okay? They were hard copies given. Those hard copies, since then, earlier this year, I've had someone scan them. Okay, so that they are all scanned in. Anybody who wants a copy is able to get a copy at any time. As far as I'm aware of, from the county attorney, anybody who requests information from us has to fill out a FOIA request. Okay, so that's just standard practice now.
Never heard that.
FOIA was filled out and all the
Well,
information.
I'm saying just in
But-
general.
From what Justin was saying, and this has been very misunderstood here. The information that Roberta had requested that wasn't given to her. Were all documents that were not kept in the planning commission. They were other documents that were. I know a few of them were kept in the auditor's office because they were things like the commissioners signed. Some of them were things the council signed, the road use agreement for one of them.
But to my point, what's the point of filling out a FOIA if we?
Because you're not
can't
filling it
receive
out
all?
in the right department.
Dude,
Doesn't that go exactly to what Spencer's talking about, with streamlining the
I-
process so that.
But I
things
can't control that because that was before I took over.
But
But
that,
it's talking
But that's
about,
what I'm
you know,
saying.
that's what he's asking.
All of that information now is all kept in a digital file that I can give to anybody.
And
We'll
well,
make a copy of it.
such an ordinance too, though, could require that all of this stuff be digitally filed. Or.
Yeah, I mean, it
But
could, I
that's
mean,
helping transparency. then.
It could.
It's just- I
but
mean,
like, for instance, like Hoosier, all of their stuff was through a Google share file. You know, so at any point in time, I can go into that Google share file and make a copy of it, download it, save it to my computer and give it to whoever wants it. Same thing with NextEra. Right now, I have NextEra in a SharePoint file. Okay, granted, they are in the permitting process. Their stuff is with the engineer right now being looked over. So once he gives his approval, then at that point, it goes to a tech committee meeting. If the tech committee approves it, then it goes on to the planning commission. And the planning commission then would either approve it or deny it.
That's all in an existing ordinance now, that it has to go through each one of these steps. And at this point, its title would be
Right.
in permitting, but at this point, it wouldn't be considered to yet have been done permitting.
That's how we've been doing it, and it's in that ordinance that way.
I
It
think
goes through a tech committee. And then it goes on to the planning commission for approval.
to the point that he
So-
made about all companies, the streamline, all companies being treated equal. Before the moratorium was set last time,
That was
I
something
believe,
else. I would like
I
to
believe we
address.
had two different ordinances for two different solar companies. So you already had two different companies being treated differently, and now you've made a moratorium to where any future companies aren't gonna get the same treatment as these three companies, and you set yourself up for lawsuits.
So
When,
as of right now, though, because I've heard you guys say this a couple of times that we have a moratorium. As of right now, I'm not aware that we have a moratorium. Because I'm having a public hearing on it. The moratorium you guys passed.
I am sorry, I'll correct myself.
And the
The moratorium that was suggested by the commissioners, I apologize for that. The suggested moratorium would mean that any other company after the two companies with two different ordinances, they're already being treated differently. These next companies that come in are gonna be expecting the same equal treatment as companies that we've already catered to. And if they don't get that catering, we're gonna look at a lawsuit. You can't treat one company one way and then tell the other company, no, we're not gonna do that for you. We bent over backwards for these guys. We're not gonna jump through anything for you.
So where can I find that process in writing? The process.
In the ordinance,
Is that?
in the solar ordinance.
No, okay, so just for solar. So that doesn't go for anything other than solar? Like for, say for subdivision?
The subdivision, there's a subdivision
Okay,
ordinance.
that's what, I want to see in the permitting process where it establishes that,
For
steps.
instance, with the subdivision, there's a subdivision petition that has to get filled out and there's steps that they have to follow, a checklist. So I don't know.
Well, like say
Why
there's an
you're
order.
impression those aren't already in place.
Yeah, I guess I would have that impression because if the
I
steps
wish you
were in
would have
place.
Talk to me and ask me.
Well,
about
no,
it.
I didn't know, I don't know you. I was simply watching the situation happen and unfold over the last couple of years where you have companies coming to the drainage board doing what they're doing. And I'm like, how was that not thought of before this?
It is, that's why
It
they're
isn't.
going to the.
It isn't. Because I asked the gentleman who did his site assessment, he has no idea. And he's telling, and then so the
I
drain,
can't speak to whoever you talk to, but
well, the guy who came from the company.
they go, yeah.
I just don't know how, and I know I'll acknowledge that this is the lawyer in me. I like rules to be in place that set things out ahead of time. That these are the steps that you need to take, and once you have satisfied these steps, then we will start considering your petition to be filed or valid. Attorneys have trial rules you have to follow. I know that when I send a set of discovery to an opposing party, I not only have to send a hard copy, I have to send it in an electronic modifiable format, or else it is not considered to have been served. I think that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of bright line rules Spencer's looking at. And I don't see how it can, other than possibly making hoops for some people to jump through to be able to earn their millions. I don't know how it would be a downside for the taxpayer.
Well, I mean, like, let's just say like like say, I've seen an ordinance that they're talking about coming out tomorrow, okay? It mentions 30% of some kind of electrical drawings or something. What I'm seeing is that it's almost like an overview of the entire project, that 30% electrical drawings are acceptable for an entire project, not just a step of the project, which seems strange because I don't think the state accepts that. It may be 30% of step A of a project, and then you can move forward into start doing that. But I'm not, again, I could have read it wrong, but when I read through it, it looks to me like it's 30% of a monstrous project. We can let you go ahead and start working. And I'm like, is it of just the initial step or is it the whole project? So that's where I don't see the difference. And I was just outside looking in, reading it. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I didn't know the state would accept 30%. And then where did 30%? Because I don't think the state accepts 30%.
Because there was a company that was currently at 30%.
I didn't know where the 30 came from. See, I wasn't sure of that
They
when I saw it.
They wanted to make sure that company got
The
included.
first person who drafted the ordinance, which was an engineer. So that's why.
Right. So he's saying it's 30% of the entire project?
There was
When they are
engineer that drafted
initially-
the ordinance.
When they're initially submitting for their permit, they're requiring at least the 30% specification of the plan up front. Now, 100% of those specification and plans should be submitted then in the as-built when it's done.
That's not right. I do this for a living. That is not right at all. All the projects I've been involved with the last 40 years, we never build anything until we get 100% of the plan. And the as-bills have nothing to do with the 100%. The as-bills are the plans that are drawn red lines after the job is completely done.
Right.
Those are done on 100% plans. The same plans that are released for bid. Nobody builds anything with 30%. That's utterly impossible.
Right, I get that.
Yeah, and as-built and 100% plans are two totally different things.
Well, I didn't see it spelled out in the ordinance.
I
In the
never.
original ordinance, there was nothing about 30%. That's in the one that they're proposing on
It
Wednesday.
should be 100%. There shouldn't be no permit until it's 100%. How can you build something when you don't even know what you're building? How can you say, yeah, let's do this? We're gonna give you whatever, but we don't know what you're doing. You're a third of the way there. That's good enough. Let's do it.
Well, and the problem is, for example, you do electrical, and I'm just gonna throw it out there. You do an electrical, like, we permit something with 30% drawings on electrical. So now, electrician comes in, they're doing the work. The part of the work that they're doing is on 50% in, and we never saw it. They get electrocuted because the plans maybe weren't up to par, shouldn't have been approved to begin with, and now they sue the county. I mean, if you gotta have something to be basing things off of, and 30% is not enough. The moratorium, Mike, just to be clear, the 1-year moratorium it includes all the companies that are still, that aren't even permitted yet. So Mammoth, as far as I know, hasn't even submitted anything new, and we're excluding them from the moratorium. Next Era hasn't got everything approved yet. Going to Spencer's point, the whole permit thing, at what point, and I've asked Mary this before, so is it the minute I give you my drainage? Is that the start of my permit? Or is it when I give you all of my documents? Right? It should be all of my documents, drainage board approval, EDA, everything that's in the ordinance. Instead, what we're doing is we're saying that companies are they're in the approval process, they're in the permit process, but they haven't submitted everything. So how do we know that Jack Angel Solar out there doesn't have leases signed? And as far as they know, they're in the permit process, right? Again, I think what Spencer's trying to say is we're putting ourselves at risk by excluding people that are in process because we don't really have a very good process.
Well, didn't that happen with one company where once everything was turned in, then you found out who the leasers were? Or who their leases were with?
It wasn't one, it was close to when they got their permit, but.
There's no time for the
Right,
public
but
to
what
react.
determines somebody being in the permit process? Is it the first drawing? Is it the road usage agreement? Is it the EDA, like what piece of paper is it that Mary gets in this file that tells her and officially says, like most counties, okay, your application is pending. This is the date you submitted it, stamped. Okay, now it's in review, stamped, approved, stamped, right? We don't do any of that. And I mean, I've never been anywhere where you didn't have a step in the process. And I can promise you, if I would have came in here 4 years ago with my building plans for my house and it only had 30% electrical, I can guarantee you, they wouldn't have given me a permit.
Well, you couldn't have got the permit if you didn't already have your driveway platted, right?
We had to have everything planned out. Our electrical, our plumbing, everything had to be in our plans for us to get our permit. And we weren't allowed, if I would have came in and said, well, oh, you know, this bedroom is 30% of the house and this is what the electric's gonna look like. But I promise that the rest of it is all gonna be up to code, right? They wouldn't have given me a permit.
So what I'm gathering from all these conversations is we have a moratorium coming down the pipes here. It sounds like the planning commission is, and the TRC is working to develop a new up-to-date ordinance. And am I understanding it correctly that we're excluding 1 or 2 companies from the moratorium?
Because 3 that's being worked on here now. Mammoth, next there and Hoosier.
Okay,
Hoosier's permitted, next there in Mammoth's additional phases have not been permitted.
so it seems like if they don't have a permit, wouldn't we want them to follow the new ordinance regardless of if they're a company already doing business here or a company not doing business here currently? So they're all on the same. I'm just trying to understand because a lot of this happened before me and I appreciate everybody trying to help get me up to speed here. It seems like there's already a big group of people working on updating the ordinance.
Okay, so like NextEra. NextEra has already submitted like their share file. It's already with the engineering consultant on it. He's the one who goes through the ordinance and checks the boxes like everybody's asking about. Once he's done his review of it, then that's when we have our tech committee meeting. And then he gives his review of it and what they're missing, what they're not missing. And then the tech committee, then at that point, it decides, well, yeah, this should move forward or no, this shouldn't move forward to the planning commission.
Weren't there issues with the tech committee not advertising the meetings or keeping minutes? I thought
There was not.
been advised.
Prior to 2022. Tech committee meetings that were held prior to 2022, I can't speak for because those ones I had no control over. Since I've taken over, every tech committee meeting that we've had has been advertised
Where,
and meeting.
where they advertise
That's
that?
some other
They get
thing.
advertised online, in the newspaper.
Where at online, what newspaper?
Well, wait.
Why would?
No, they go online to, like the county Facebook page, they go on the county website, WKBI.
WKBI, nothing, no.
Yeah,
No.
I see WKBI.
Every day, that tech committee meeting that we threw a fit about that Tom Baker was involved in.
Tom Baker, never been.
He's never been on the tech committee.
Shut him up.
They were asking questions.
They're gonna move on here.
Yes, it was.
John's never been on the
It
tech
was
committee.
advertised.
It was not.
All right, Don. Justin, you wanted to say some stuff?
NextEra, Mammoth, and Hoosier are all following suit in the new ordinance of what they have to permitting, they're not all.
We're still on the old ordinance, not permitted. There's a new one coming.
She just said they're not permitted.
Yes. It should, no permit, it doesn't matter who you are, you should. Doesn't make sense.
Moratorium went to those that were not permitted.
We moving on.
Yeah, Justin wanted to say some.
Well, I was asked a couple of questions. I kind of want to bring it full circle because I think when it comes to the permitting, we're talking 2 different things. And since I'm on the front lines of answering angry emails from solar representatives, I think maybe I can clarify, because I think there's a compromise here. Is,
Can you speak to that?
yeah, permitting is easy to tell if somebody's permitted, right? Where we're falling short, and I think to Mr. England's point, I don't think he, in legal terms, because there are a couple attorneys in the room, is the reliance argument that they're using, and I think that's what we need to shore up. It's not so much, so just, and Cassandra, you can correct me if I'm wrong too. It's been a while since I've studied this. So outside of a contract, in limited cases, somebody can make what's called a detrimental reliance argument. They can say that, which is to Mr. England's point, I think is what's happening here, and that's what we need to close. It's pretty easy to look at something and say they do or don't have the materials and they're permitted. Where some of these companies, not just the solar companies, because I fielded angry emails from other companies too, they go, wait a second, I'm going to call this bad faith because they picked up phone calls. They were talking to me. I have $10 million invested. I think that's what we need to close up. Permitting's easy. The reliance argument's what we need to cut off. And if that's implemented into our ordinance where we specifically say or delineate, you know, you have no, it doesn't matter if you have $10 million invested in this project until you get this into us, we don't consider you to have a permit. So I think we're talking two different things, because Mary makes a good point to say, permit's easy. Steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's into us. But where these companies, not just solar, are threatening us as saying, I've talked to the county, you guys knew this was coming. I think we need to cut that off in our ordinance, because I think that cuts off the reliance argument that they're trying to threaten us with.
They using part, because there are quasi contractual arguments like promissory estoppel and detrimental reliance. But you also have to argue as part of that reliance that you reasonably rely.
Sure. No.
What other community are they operating in which they can say that? Just because Stark doesn't have its act together on some of this stuff. All these other counties, like obviously the Fort, have it together now.
They do now.
And so that, you know, that's an argument. Yeah, it's an argument probably for a judge or a jury. Did you reasonably rely on this?
Sure.
But so I think I'll just back up. I agree, there are those two quasi-contractual arguments, but for them to argue that they reasonably relied, especially after this conversation, and my question was, in the reliance argument, are they saying, well, we've gone out to landowners and signed leases?
Sure.
Well, that's your problem, buddy.
Sure.
I can go buy a lot of land and I can think I'm going to get a permit to build my house, and it can get denied, and I might have $1 million invested in that lot of property, especially if it's water.
Yeah,
But it's not my problem if they jump the gun, enter into written contracts with people with no guarantee that it's going to be approved by the governing body.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. What I think we need to do is try to cut it off at the knees before they can even get to that argument. I would much rather file a motion to dismiss, because we've got a written ordinance that says until, you know, you get to this point, there is no bad faith argument, there's no detrimental reliance, because that's an easy one for us to win, right? So I think everybody in the room, I don't think anybody would argue that, hey, these companies shouldn't just say, whether it's solar, whether it's somebody in your, you know, your corporate park out there or industrial park. I don't think anybody should say, well, you know what, we went out there and we talked to prospects, the county was put on actual notice that this was happening. I mean, I think that's good practice regardless of what we, because again, permitting, they have A, B, C, and D taken care of. That's easy to see, but you know, everything that goes into before, we can just kneecap that, that'd be great.
With an ordinance, but in the meantime, allowing companies to sneak under the loop or the limbo law that aren't actually permitted just because I don't know what a reason is given, right? Been around, but they haven't finished all of their paperwork, and you're discriminating against other corporations who might not have started a permit process. These companies didn't start the permit process. They should, all of the ones that have not started this permit process should be grouped together instead of being given special treatment.
So can we take the exclusion out, since it sounds like we're in process and this new ordinance is going to be done quickly? Can we take the exclusion out so doesn't look like we're playing bias with any companies?
You mean the exclusion for the
companies that are already doing business in Stark County?
So okay, you're saying, can you remove the portion where you exempted the Nextera and the Mammoth project? Right. You guys, you as the commissioners have the power to vote on a new proposal you send to the planning commission. If that's your prerogative to do that, you can.
So would we have to make new, or can we just make an amendment?
I would, Well, because to amend it, I think it has to go to the planning commission first and come up to you, and they've got to, since it's already been pushed to them. They have an ordinance in their hands. I'm not telling you to do this or not do this, but you do have the power to send a new proposal down there. If you want them to consider the second proposal. That's up to you guys.
So if we make a proposal to not exclude any companies, it sounds like we're already on track to try to expedite this new ordinance, but then potentially anything that's not currently permitted would potentially fall under the new ordinance with the changes that have been updated to.
So I want to be careful what I say because obviously, and I know all three of you were part of this. We talked about this in executive session. I don't want to play our litigatory hand here, but we talked about when we were threatened with a lawsuit. As everybody in this room knows, by NextEra, we talked about some of the factors in there. I don't want to extrapolate on that just because if you guys decide to go that route, I don't want to tip our hand to, anybody that's going to try to sue us, if that makes any sense. Right. So everything we talked about in that executive session, when we were threatened with litigation, you have to take into consideration.
But there wouldn't be anything stopping one of those companies from coming to us and say, hey, we were ready to pull the trigger on this tomorrow, and this may potentially be a game changer for us.
Sorry, what do you mean?
So let's say we take the exclusion out and everybody's on the same playing field that does not currently have a permit. But that doesn't mean that, we'll just use an example, as NextEra can still come to us and plead their case that we were a week away from moving forward with this.
Legally, I would stray away from making exemptions once you put a flat moratorium on something, just because then you're kind of maybe offending what you guys were talking about. Some companies are letting, some you're not. That's just my legal opinion, right? If you decide to pull the exemptions, I would across the board, I would, I mean, I don't know, because I know the reason that it had been discussed to exempt NextEra was because they were so far along. You can, but if you're going to pull it from everybody and put a flat moratorium in place, it starts to look more problematic when you're on a case by case saying you're good, you're not, you're good, you're not, if that makes sense. I don't think, which is everything that everybody in the audience was saying too, when you start picking and choosing.
If they put the moratorium in place and there are companies that have a case to plead, can't they come to a public hearing and do that when they ask that it be lifted?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. These public hearings that the planning commission are going to have, regardless of if you let them continue with the first proposal or submit a new one, it's going to necessitate a public hearing. So if you guys submit a proposal for them today, I don't know what your calendar looks like, Mary, but you're a month or two out before you could get that new proposal on a public hearing schedule, presumably. We're talking about if they nix the proposal that was sent to you last month and they decided to do something else.
So if I get it within like the next week, I can still put it on for federal.
I mean, if that's your guys' prerogative, vote that way, I can have a tour in that period of time if you want to go that route. It's up to you guys.
Justin, here's the question.
Yes, ma'am.
So on that note, right, so if we know we've got changes we want to make to the ordinances and we know they're coming and some of them are great, if all those pass, so let's say that we do this. And NextEra, I'm just using NextEra because they're the closest. Then we get the ordinances fixed, and maybe that only takes us 3 months, right? We've got the 1 year that Donnie put in, but if we stick with that, in 3 months, we can say at any time, we're lifting the moratorium, here's the new ordinance. Now, let's say NextEra says, well, hold on a minute, we were going off of the old ordinance, and our, whatever the changes are, right? Can we request a variance because we already have this set up? Could they not try to get a variance if the county chose? I'm just asking.
What's that look like?
They still fall under, like, since we're talking about NextEra, wouldn't NextEra still fall under the second ordinance that was in play because that's when they submitted?
Again, we're getting into items that are going to be litigated, and it's put me in a tough position because I can't if they decide to go a direction that one of these solar companies don't like, and I in an open meeting talk about a position that the solar company is going to nab onto.
I think
That was a point of discussion. Yes, that's been a point of discussion.
right, like the current ordinance, like if we pass this new ordinance, NextEra would follow the existing ordinance, not
They
the
would
new one.
follow the existing one, which they started their permit
Right,
process under.
so what I was asking was if we put in a moratorium and we don't allow any permits to come through right now, and then we pass the new ordinance, there's nothing that would keep a company, that then they would have to follow
But
the
I
new
don't
ordinance.
think the moratorium would stop them because they've already started.
Well, but what they're, with the existing moratorium, correct, they're talking about changing that,
There is no existing moratorium.
the one that was sent down,
It got rescinded.
not the battery storage. We're
They
talking
didn't
about,
pass-
they didn't pass the solar,
They didn't pass.
they passed this, they
They got
passed.
battery, but then it got rescinded.
Right, so on that note, let me
So
ask you this,
currently, there is no moratorium.
is that certified?
Even on battery? No.
No, what was certified, I'm sorry?
When they rescinded, when Donnie and Mark rescinded NextEra, taking them out of the moratorium that they originally passed. That week later, did we certify that?
No, it was not
Okay,
certified.
then right now, we have a moratorium for everybody.
The certification, well, the certification comes in from the planning commission after they have a public hearing and they certify that proposal and send it back up to commissioners to pass it. If that's what you mean. It gets certified after the
Didn't
public
they-
hearing.
Right, that one, but when they certified the first one, that's the one that passed. The planning, Charles, they all passed the original moratorium against battery thing, they passed it. A week, you guys certified their vote, sending it back down to the planning commission. A week later, they changed it, we never recertified.
So this wouldn't the
So
certified.
the certified vote is the one that stands right now because we never
I'm
certified
talking about
Oh.
when they rescinded it.
when we rescinded.
Because it never went up for a final vote that was approved, so presumably if the proposal wasn't taken up in that time, it would die. And what would still be in place was the non-certified proposal. Because there was not a vote by them to approve that final ordinance. So if it doesn't just go with the planning commission's recommendation that was certified because they didn't take a final vote on it. So there's also timelines built into that process to amend a zoning ordinance. And if you don't adhere to those timelines, then the proposal is deemed dead. So if they didn't pass it or recertify whatever they were going to do, and the original proposal has not been acted upon by the commissioners within that time frame, it should be dead.
Right.
Is how that would work. If I'm following your train of logic.
I thought they said they were gonna send it back to the planning commission. didn't they?
Right,
But then the planning commission has to act on it within so many days.
right,
And if they don't, it's deemed dead. So I don't,
but was it
I think
ever
we had
sent
that.
down? My question though is, was it resent down? After Mark removed them from the moratorium?
yeah, the planning commission would have had to have acted on it within
So it was
Todd,
certified, that was sent.
45, I couldn't remember if it was 30 or 45
I
days,
think it's 45 days,
45.
but that was sent back down to the planning commission.
They rescinded it
Right.
before the planning commission could even look at it.
Yeah.
This
I
is
know.
why we need, yeah, this is why we need, yeah, this is why we need better understandings, yeah.
You guys tell me what you want to do and if you want me to draft differently, I will. I've got to take off my next meeting, but I don't want to miss what you guys are going to do.
Well, I guess I'd make a motion to update the moratorium to take out the exclusions. With the exception of anything that is already permitted, that we have granted the permit for.
Okay, so a new proposal, you're
Correct.
saying, okay, without the exclusions, which would be NextEra Phase 2 and
Potentially.
Mammoth Phase 2, whatever they're calling it. Okay, so I want to make sure I draft this right.
So that would give us a clean start to the confusion that's happening in the room right now. That we'd be under moratorium with no exclusions. Unless already permitted.
That your motion,
That's my motion.
second? No. I'll second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I'll draft it, I'll get it to Mary. So,
Now, is there exclusions on the battery as well?
exclusions on the battery.
Because I know that kind of went back and forth a little bit as well.
NextEra was excluded from the battery. That's the certification I was asking about.
And I don't think the planning commission didn't act on it, so it would have been a dead proposal. Same as with the solar.
So we would need a moratorium on battery storage as well.
Because they're no longer,
You'd need a new proposal, yes,
they're getting separated currently.
yes.
That's what they're working on.
So I'd make a motion to put a moratorium on battery storage with no exclusions. Unless already permitted, which I don't believe anybody's permitted currently.
Correct.
Correct.
Got a motion and a second. I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Opposed?
So one more quick thing while we're talking about solar. I know that the planning commission and TRC is working on it. And maybe this has been done in the past, but have we developed any community groups to weigh in and have input on this? Any committees?
Public meetings.
So no committees have been formed to try to get more input, to your knowledge? No? Is that something that we can do, or does that need to come from the planning commission?
Well, you guys can form committees, how you choose, as long as they don't contain, but so. Where we got into a little bit of confusion with the tech review committee, you have to be careful kind of authority you're delegating. So if you delegate zoning authority to a committee, then the public access counselor had said, even though we didn't have it in writing, that it would still be subject to open door. But if it's a committee for, and I'm sorry, what you said the committee would be for?
So for public input,
Oh, for public input?
so to
Yeah.
make recommendations to
I
the
Like
TRC.
an advisory.
Yeah.
Board.
Yeah, you guys can create committees and describe, what rules those committees have to follow. Like if you want them to still have to post that those be open meetings, you can also require that, even though it's not required.
Okay,
So,
Isn't that though kind of redundant because the planning commission is an advisory board?
well, I'm just thinking of drawing more people in. I know when I campaigned, I met thousands of people and all had these ideas of solar. And some of them are in this room right now that had good ideas pro solar and folks that were not so in favor of solar. And I think maybe creating a committee of, I don't know, 8 or 10 people to get some input from both sides of the division on this might be good to maybe give to the planning commission for just recommendations. Is that something that can be formed? Sure. Do we need to make a motion for it or, and do we have to have an official establishment?
one, it depends what kind of a board you want to make it. If you just want it to be a loose committee, you can do it by simple motion. If you want it to be a board that you create for specific purposes, it's going to carry through for years to come. You probably should do that in the form of a resolution. So, yeah, if it's an ad hoc committee, kind of what we call them, you can just approve it by motion.
I wonder if it'd be like something like that committee, if outside of solar and that, if it for other projects or what, get input that way too, you know what I mean? So it might be better with the resolution.
So we don't need to make a motion for it?
If you guys want it to be a continuing thing, then just tell me, I guess, purpose, number of appointed people. I can put that in the form of a resolution.
They come up with the committee, couldn't they, without any of that stuff, right?
Sorry,
They could come up with a committee without any of that stuff. I mean, Mike can just put it in the paper or whatever. That he want the committee to for input or whatever.
yeah, like I said, if you just want a committee for a defined purpose, it's gonna have a few meetings, solicit input, you don't need a resolution, but if it's gonna be something like all those appointments there. And it's not statutory, but you want it to carry forward, you should probably put that in the form of a resolution. It's like you're creating a perpetual committee without a defined endpoint.
But it could be a defined endpoint. We're
Sure.
gonna have work on this particular project.
Yeah, you could say, you want them for the next 3 months to solicit public input and then come back and present to you guys. You can just do that by a simple vote.
Wait, what?
A simple vote.
Okay.
If you do a resolution, then you have the same group every time. If we don't do it that way, you could change the group. But if we make another thing like that, you're gonna keep the same people. Then you ain't getting enough input. I don't think.
I think a community outreach committee is a good idea. It's something prolonged because it doesn't have to pertain to strictly solar. Solar's not the only issue in Stark County. So I think a resolution, as he was talking, would be a good idea.
Have you not had 5 years of community meetings already?
This can go for more than just solar. Solar is not the only issue in Stark County.
Well-
Can I? While you're on the moratoriums, and just something to think about, we might wanna start thinking about like creating ordinances for things like carbon capture, wind, just in case, right? I mean, if we're gonna do this, we should probably start looking at being ahead of the game before we end up behind it again. So just,
You're about 6 months behind here.
the carbon capture's already, okay,
I'm already working on it.
all right, got it, thanks, Todd.
Well, let's just.
I figured
table
maybe,
the
but
committee
yeah.
till next
Okay.
meeting. We'll discuss with
Okay.
folks in the planning.
Yep. Then we have Michaeline, with your night meetings and the stipend.
Okay, other county auditors are getting a $2,500 stipend every year for all the extra work that has to go on throughout the county. But also night meetings, they were getting, I mean, the auditor was getting paid for night meetings last year and then it was just taken away for this year. So I would just like to see that taken back because, or getting that back because I'm taking a salary cut now.
I'm okay with you getting it back, but it's the council that stopped it, so I don't know.
Right,
I
but
don't know, was it a state thing, Dave, or was it just the council?
I will speak for the council, but I thought we did it because at that point in time, there was no water. And it was not a salary ordinance to pay that pay to anybody else besides the auditor. Because the auditor was not actually taking the minutes for the meetings. So why should the auditor get all that money when they may not even be taking the minutes for the meeting tonight? Because the other deputies were at that point in time, because there was no auditor. And I would say with the way the budget looks right now, the mess that appears to be in, I think we're gonna have to look at cutting. It might have been also based on a raise that came for the. It might have been, I don't know. That's my recollection, I could be totally wrong, but that's the way I remember it.
I'll make a motion, Michaeline gets it back up to,
Actually,
no, it was the State
Board of Accounts that told us we had to stop it.
well, that's what I thought, it was the state.
State Board of Accounts, you're right, it was. Okay, that makes more sense then. It was in one of our audits.
And they show up to take it to the council with them, so. I don't remember the name of it. State deal, nothing.
Yeah,
to do.
I'm extra. I can't remember. Yeah.
They did it for years.
That doesn't make it right because they did it for years.
Not this year.
And we stop all that.
You made a motion, there's second. Second, that motion doesn't carry,
I'd make a motion to table to the next meeting.
and a motion by Mike, is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Don, all those in favor, aye.
oh, I want to remind you guys all too, that your next meeting is on, falls on a holiday, so the meeting will be on the Tuesday.
Are these,
Piece of paper back. Thank you.
are these the minutes here?
Yes. The minutes and the payroll plan and that's just attachments to it. You only have to sign that. Keep it all together.
I think these are the. This is the J and K quotes, so. Unless that's something.
That's stuff that I attached to the minutes that was all discussed at the meeting,
So we're being on, so this is,
but I would like that back.
okay,
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from December 16th, 2024? I'll second, all those in favor? Aye. The motion to approve the vendor claims in the amount of $498,947. And the motion is our second. I'll second. All those in favor? Aye.
Somebody did.
Then we have the payroll claims. The amount of $320,137.28.
I have a question. Can I ask that?
Yes.
So it was brought to my attention today that there is a payroll claim in there for the previous surveyor. And he should have already gotten his 26 days and it should be coming out of my,
That's not that payroll.
oh, it's not?
This is the payroll that was from December 27th.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'll bring it up at the next meeting. Thank you.
So we had a motion and is there a second?
I wasn't here during that time.
Right, I'll make a second. All those in favor? Aye. For the Bass Lake and Coons Lake easements,
VNS is getting ready to give us an appraisal. Give us a price on,
Who is
BS Engineering,
BS?
B, Victor.
yes,
Okay, she was sick this week. I was supposed to got her, I got one map from Mary. So Coons Lake, I haven't got Bass Lake yet. They are working.
okay,
They're gonna give us a bid. And I'd ask them, like you said, to bid it all, but we're only probably do it a couple of years,
Right.
so
do you have anything else for us, Don?
I did. Just, especially since we got all the council here, they know what's going on. We need 2 squad cars. The septic at the jail still needs fixed, $125,000 at least. The ambulance base in Grovertown needs a lot of work, and the ambulance base here in Knoxville. We need to finish the concrete from this year. We need to decide what we're gonna do with the Buffalo and where we're gonna put it. I'd like to see us add on to the warehouse. And the only other thing I got, I'd just like to address or line ball and Bennett's the guy that was laughing and left here. What they were saying about the pump.
About the what?
The pump, that, right? Remember when we went around line and said I had a bunch of stuff under
Under
it?
wide. All I said is you cannot come before the park board and tell them how we are gonna spend solar money.
It ain't up to you.
Because it's up to the county council.
I'm not arguing with the town. I'm gonna tell these people what's going on.
I already told them what the truth is.
Yeah, no, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
Stop now.
No, I'm gonna tell you guys what to do. Mike can decide what they're doing, but not Todd and Bennett.
Well,
We never decided on anything.
Exactly.
You're the one that put it in the park board minutes, in the park board agenda.
Exactly. And
When did you become liaison?
shut up, I'm sorry.
Don, now,
I got off the agenda, not because you found out, you got nothing. I got off the agenda because the lawyer didn't have the paperwork done.
Okay, well, you don't represent the county commissioners. You can't make that decision about
The
that.
county commissioners knew what I was working on, there was never.
How did they know? It was never talked about in the meeting. So
You
you
don't have to talk to Martin Bozer on, Todd. You're just trying to call.
that's,
Get the minutes.
I wasn't voted on.
When?
It was not.
Oh, so the-
Why are we having this discussion when he asked to speak and everybody else?
Cause that's not time. So you gonna shut him up and let me finish, or we're gonna just leave?
I'm not here to finish.
Okay. 2 years ago, when I become commissioner, I had a lot of Bass Lake people call me. And said, hey, what's going on? Why is this personal owner getting 60 grand to put a well in his yard? I said, I have no idea. So I went and I mentioned it to you, I mentioned it to Mark and said, you gonna say I didn't?
No, I said,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you mentioned
And I
it.
said, I was gonna check into it. So I got a hold of Solar, Chris is here, but he wasn't involved at the time. I got a hold of Solar and say, what's going on? I just got getting 60 grand.
Mhm.
Why didn't you offer to our park board? Well, I don't know. So we checked into it more and more. And they said, I'll tell you what, Donnie, if this second well does not work, would you give me a spot 6 inches or 8 inches? Not like Ty was telling acres last
I
meeting.
never said acres was.
6
Back the myth.
inches or 8 inch well to put in for the county lake in case it, went down. We got a pump there. The Solar had offered to put this extra in. So when I found out about it, so why are you paying, like you getting the pay and why not our park board? So they said, if you would save us a spot for 6 inch well or 8, whatever they dispose of, if this second well don't work, this is only if it don't work, we might never have to use it, but save them a spot for a well. And then there'll be a cover on it, Conservancy will take care of the maintenance, we'll not worry about nothing. And we'll give the park board $60,000. So that sounds pretty good to me.
Mighty convenient, right? After-
So.
You cannot make that decision as one person. That is a commission decision.
I talked to the commissioners, I know what I'm saying, you worry about your job.
You talk to them in what private, you roll.
Here, but there was not a vote, there was not a vote, so I don't have to do nothing.
So you had a quorum?
There was not a vote. We had a meeting. You had a quorum. We had a meeting. We're in a meeting right now. I'm talking to these two about it. Shut up. Shut up.
Why are you letting Justin do this?
Because that's how it goes.
It doesn't go like that. But we represent the people and not exactly like that.
No, I'm not going to say, Don. And sorry, Charlie, but I'm gonna call you out. You and Bruce have been going around calling everybody out, that they're doing wrong. I've never done nothing wrong.
About what? About what, Don?
Anything.
Make an example. Give me an example.
I'm gonna give you an example.
Okay.
So you come to the commissioners, say there's somebody stealing at the county ground.
Yeah.
Good catch, Todd. Why wouldn't Charlie ever sit down in the state board of accounts, because he was agreed.
Because I told the county attorney right away, and then it got out of my hands. I did that
No.
because I don't want to be sneaking around. I don't want somebody to say, boy, Todd, you.
But you didn't say that Charlie will pay for it.
Charlie in that.
That's it.
So the state board of accounts, and that's the end of it.
Do we need to?
I don't play that one if you quit for it.
I turned it.
You didn't have so much, anything, or my
Got anyone? Anyone else got anything? What?
Okay, so I have to bring the payroll up again. Actually, that check will get paid this Friday, so the next meeting will be too late. So that claim should actually get pulled now.
Mhm.
Well, the thing is, I talked to State Board of Accounts. It won't necessarily have to come out of your salary. There'll have to be some money brought somewhere else.
Yeah,
Because
but-
I sent an email to State Board of Accounts. And he was actually shorted 8 days at the end of 2022. And I told him how the payroll went, how the pay dates went. I told him what he got paid. I sent the whole information. I've got a copy of the email upstairs. They said that he is due that money.
Is the treasurer due that money too?
There's
No,
no-
because the
there's
treasurer
no
got
code that
paid
Says what
the
they get.
full 26
The
years,
salary
in all 4 years she
That
was there.
that's what it counts. If you approve the
Yeah,
salary.
Tom came in the middle of, well, not even the middle of the year, but in September 19th. And I went through because there was discussion about it. And I went through and I checked every pay date and every day all through, and he was actually shorted 8 days of pay because of the way all the pay dates fell.
But elected
Now-
officials follow the salary. ordinance. They don't
Right, but
follow-
we're talking about 2022
Right,
It's too late.
and he
Yeah.
was shorted 8 days.
They don't know what pays for that now.
Yeah, with no money, but that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd be in the red, we'd be paying for something we don't have money appropriated for.
right.
Because the salary ordinance is appropriated for that set amount, and that's it.
Yeah.
Plain
That's what
simple.
I'm saying.
Do you have documentation from the state board of accounts?
Yes, I do. I have it in an email and I can forward it to all of you.
Can I make a statement? Due to the fact that you're related, do you think maybe the council should do a separate audit of his hours to also verify that?
That's fine, but I mean, it's right there. I can send it all to all of you.
Okay, and then one more quick thing.
I don't even do
Just so you guys are aware, this happened prior to me taking office. The truck had received damage to the front and rear. I made it aware to a couple of people beforehand, but nothing got done about it. But I have two estimates here. One's for $4,300 and the other one's for like $4,500. Two local places, two local shops. I'm not asking for it to be fixed, but I want it documented in the minutes that this damage was done prior to me taking office, so that I don't get any kind of repercussions from.
So you take a picture of the damage and give it to the office.
Yes, I can definitely do that. I have-
It's on record.
Yep, I'll definitely do
Is
that.
the truck safe to drive?
It is structurally sound, correct? Yep.
There's no risk to anybody driving it or anybody around it that there could be damage that could.
Not that
Cause
the
injury.
body shop was able to see without, tearing into something, but there shouldn't be. It should just be bumpers, brackets, inner fenders, that type of thing. So nothing that's gonna prohibit me from pulling a trailer or driving safely down the road or anything like that.
Do you guys know?
Damage reported to any commissioners or anybody?
I can't say for sure. I've only heard hearsay that it was reported to one commissioner, but I don't know that for sure.
Can I ask us a
So-
question?
Yes.
So if there's another accident, hopefully not, but say somebody rear ends you, is the insurance gonna cover it, or are they gonna say it was pre-existing
Oh.
if it doesn't get fixed?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, so here's,
You had two quotes?
I do, one from Marks and one's from Ken from North Judson. Those are the only two local places.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not asking for this to be fixed. I just wanted it on record. So if anybody was out and they saw that that's
See.
I didn't do it. One's $4,300 and one's $4,500.
I should ask that if there's no reports of the accident or no reports of damage, that the county taxpayer is not paying for it. Like if there was an accident with the county vehicle and it wasn't recorded or anything,
No, it's supposed to be reported according to the employee handbook. I looked because I did report it. I think actually I included you in that email.
I'm saying at the time of the accident, like if it wasn't reported,
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't believe it was. There's no.
if there's no record of the damage.
Is it county policy to not turn things into the insurance company?
No, not at all. Our county handbook says that it needs to be turned in immediately.
And
So,
was there, do you guys know of anything about it being turned in, or was it thought to be so?
I think I asked
minor?
Michaeline about it, if anything was turned in, and she said that Tom did say something about it, but that was, I don't know if it
I
was.
asked Tom and he said he told a commissioner, but I don't know which
Do you know which
commissioner.
commissioner?
I don't know which commissioner he told.
So I think our deduct out. Did you talk to Carrie?
I emailed her, yes. I had emailed her in the email that Michaeline was included in November, I believe, 12th or 11th.
So would our insurance still cover this? Are we still in the time frame of?
I honestly haven't checked into any of that. I just wanted to make sure that my record was clean, that didn't somehow go against me.
I guess I'd like to look into it to see if our insurance would still potentially cover it, especially if there was any documentation to support when or approximately when it happened.
Okay.
Was the damage done by the employee or was it done by something else, or maybe you don't know?
I don't know the details.
Okay,
I've
so we
heard
don't even know who was at
stories.
fault or
Correct.
what
I
happened.
don't know if it's property damage, if there was anything involved. I don't have any details.
Is there any way you can give us a report by the next commissioner meeting as to whether or not the insurance will
Sure.
still cover
that'll be
this?
fine. Yeah.
Is that
All right.
acceptable to you guys?
Yeah,
Right.
just call, check Carrie.
Right, I will. All right, thank you.
Oh, before I forget, we had for the river basin or the river basin board,
Oh, yeah.
had Bill Crace and Dan Gums, they turned in letters, they want to be reappointed to that for board.
Don't need to do them individually, or can we just?
Just put both their names in the motion.
Your term's not up yet, though, right?
You want to make a motion?
So you put the board on that, it is the deal in July.
Oh, okay.
We're doing it now just instead of waiting to get.
Kankakee River Basin, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd make a motion to reappoint Bill and Dan to the Kankakee River Basin.
I'll second it.
And motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Why we have not adjourned, would you and Mike think about the money? Cause if you guys don't want it, I'll see if they'll donate to somebody else.
For the-
Nothing out of
for
the
the-
county, nothing for the county, I mean, all of it.
Can you circle back? What are we talking about?
That's well.
Well,
Oh, can we discuss that next meeting? Maybe I can learn a little bit more about it.
yeah.
And feel free to call me, or if Chris is back there, he would be.
I know Justin's got a question, but one more thing. I had a taxpayer ask me about retired police cars, that there may still be some in the county we need to get rid of. Do either of you guys know?
There's scrap, we got 7 or 8 of them.
Okay, are they all in motion are they all on county property and accounted for?
No, there are 5 sitting out at the guy that worked on,
Okay,
and he's wanting to charge us, storage. So I'm
Okay.
gonna try to go out there and tell him if he wants storage, send us a bill. And there's 2, I believe, at the county garage.
is there any way we can get, do you think you can get that by the next meeting or maybe a month, just so we can keep it in?
I say we get rid of it.
Oh, yeah.
We was planning on it, well,
Right.
the record didn't get it done and all that, but they're done, they're ready now.
Well, I just don't want any questions if it doesn't happen in 6 months, that,
Okay.
you know, parts were taken off or sold or
Right.
whatever, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's what, nobody even knew they was out there
Mhm.
until Jack, was telling us about it. So,
Okay,
but yeah, they're totally junk, but we can put it on I believe Justin said we put it on the paper or whatever, that we're gonna do an auction
okay.
for scrap. County vehicles.
Well, if you can find out if we have to pay him anything.
I will, I'll go, and that's what I was gonna try to get to you before tonight.
And you
But I
might.
couldn't get on this.
Does he have a tow truck?
That guy?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, I wonder what the cost would be to get it to county property.
We can ask, but they've been out there like 6 or 8 years.
Well, if we're gonna auction them, they probably should be out there, right?
Right, I would think so. I mean, we need to find out what he wants stored.
Do we need to get quotes for moving them?
Yeah, we can,
Or do we have to put it out for bids or,
we could, I mean, either way, I don't think it matters.
well, I just wanna be legit about it.
Right, I would just assume there's all at the county.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
then they're
why
gonna go to this guy and,
Yeah.
look at him and read.
don't you see what you come up with the storage, and then maybe the next meeting we can get that in motion. Sorry, Justin.
All right, so with the new board and everything, just a suggestion, but I saw it earlier. I would ask that no more votes be made before reading an ordinance. You should never vote on something before reading it. I saw an example of it earlier today, and I would ask that in these next 2 years, we try to stem from doing that, because I believe that voting on things without reading it is part of the reason we got to where we're at. That's my only comment.
Is anyone else, Tom?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that I know you talked about these permitting issues, but I think you all need to enforce some rules on decorum at meetings.
Absolutely.
The people need to raise their hand, at least in the audience, before getting recognized and allowed to speak. Because the way this meeting went today can't happen again. I mean, it was, to me, out of control, and I'm not, it just got that way. But if you stay in the front, in the beginning of your meeting, every meeting, do not talk until you're recognized by the chair.
Thank you.
In my defense, I was talked to, my name was brought up, and myself, every time. You know that.
I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, I'm just saying, we can start the meeting,
I've never.
make sure that that's clear before going forward.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone else have anything for us? Yes, Kelly.
All right. Good evening. So we have a few problems, and I don't know exactly how this works. Do I get to come to you guys, ask you to go in front of the council? Or someone to come in and fix? We'll talk, I'll give a few examples. Everybody knows the treasurer's office has been reconciled since May of 2023. That's a year and a half of reconciling. I have started. I did get myself into the bank. I am getting statements printed, so I can start on it. I do have an email out to Wow, our software company, to the finance side to come and help me. Right now, January, they are quite busy. People are getting settlements done, all that good stuff. So by February, I should be able to have them here to help me reconcile with the bank. If we cannot get this done together, I guess I'm asking for permission to go in front of the council to ask for someone to come in and help.
I do know Lori had offered to come in on her own time.
No, would prefer no.
Just so you guys know.
Oh,
So you're,
Right now, Wow coming in to help for free. It's in the contract. They have to come help.
so you're basically asking for funds for a,
That's not all we-
That's right, you need it for a council.
I'm not asking for funds right this second. I'm
Right.
asking if I can bring someone in and maybe use some of my part-time funds for that.
Like a consultant.
Like a consultant, a financial and analysis of what's going on. We also,
You're not there right now. You're just preemptively giving
Yes.
us a warning. This could
that
potentially
could
happen.
potentially happen, because we
Okay.
also have some lease payments that came in for the hospital that were applied to tax properties that have been put out to settlement. That money's been dispersed. That's not that problem. I know Michaeline's waiting on a few things from December that weren't finished, so she can do some financial things. Yeah. So
Well,
yeah, I wanna make you aware that this could happen. This could potentially be a big problem.
as a new elected treasurer, I think whatever support we gotta do to make things go smoothly for the county is what we're gonna have to do.
Yes.
So
So again, thank you.
Good to keep in touch.
yeah, we have for sure.
You guys make that in the form of a motion to let her get help?
Well, she hasn't asked. for it.
Oh, okay. What do you need to do?
Right now, you got free help coming in.
I do.
Don't need nothing else.
Okay,
I guess when it gets closer to knowing that you will
okay,
come to a meeting, please.
so February,
Yeah.
And maybe give us some ideas on what you think it might cost to bring somebody in
well,
a period of time.
with, I mean, with your mom's background of being a treasurer in the county of Marshall for 8 years, could I hire someone like that to come in to help me? And pay her? Could I have another treasurer come in and help me? From another county?
Why don't you present us with some options?
Okay.
And then we can discuss at the next meeting.
I can do that. I'll get us a few options. Thank you.
Tom, you did.
Unless we do have a vacancy on the park board, one of the existing members.
That's the council.
Yeah.
No, but I just wanted to kind of announce it. It is a council, it's a council appointment, and it can be filled by either a Democrat or an independent. So I just wanted to make sure.
Motion adjourned.
A motion second, all in favor, right?
Right?
I just want to, I don't really want to.